Hey, what's going on, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so where do I start with the NBA? It's a couple things on my mind. All right, so I just read something that's was just rumored stuff. I don't know if this is true or not, but the point is, I, the return is what I read that made it my ears perk up. So, DeAndre Ayton to the Dallas Mavericks for Rashawn Holmes, JaVale McGee, and Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. The rumor was that the Suns declined this trade. I think that might be the price tag on Ayton right now. That's why I bring this to you. Not to say that that rumor was true or not. I don't know. All I'm saying is, by example of what that provided, that's kind of the value I think Ayton has right now, and that's not very good. And I'm not happy with it, but that's kind of what it is. So that's kind of what I want to bring to you guys just early on. Is just saying that I don't think the Suns are going to get much better than that. If they did have that on the table, I'm not saying I'd say yes to that. I'm just saying that that's what's probably out there for you. The Suns do need some depth. Let's just say I wanted to swing at the fences and just try to make this make any sense. I don't know that JaVale McGee really has any value in the NBA right now. You could use him, but I don't know if that's an excuse to bring in an asset that doesn't really hold any value if you're the Suns. This is why I think a certain way that's probably not going to still lead us to where we need to be. And that's what I want to try to like help people understand, that I understand that my preference in the situation probably isn't going to get the Suns what their timeline's going to need, which is why this trade rumor is probably something the Suns should say yes to. And I looked in the comments section, and everybody that was pretty much unanimous. They were like, the Suns should probably take that deal. My thing and my preference is to always bring something that's going to ascend in value. So I'm going to dead the deal if I'm the Suns, because I'm looking at our asset class and I'm saying we don't have anything that's worth anything unless we give up stuff we don't want to give up. So in giving up Aiton, the move I got to make has to bring me back all things that I can retrade. All things. But the problem is I also need to win right now because I got this timeline, and the guys that they're trying to give us, I think they fit a need for the Phoenix Suns. Yeah, you're sending Aiton out, so you're losing a center, but you're bringing back two in Rashawn Holmes and JaVale McGee. Now, as I assess talent, I'm saying Rashawn Holmes probably isn't worth anything either. But I also believe that Rashawn Holmes still has enough left in the tank to where we can play him up from where he is right now if he could just stay healthy for longer than 5 minutes. And that's the key with him. He doesn't stay healthy for anything in the world. Just hopefully from here it all goes well, but this has been reoccurring his entire career, and he's been in the league for at least 8 years. So at this point, the data is very strong with Rashawn Holmes, and he's not going to probably play more than 30 games a season. So he's not worth anything, not in theory. But if you bring him in, them 30 games gonna help you because you need depth, and you can use the size. And I'm not sure you're bringing back Jock Lawndale, because looking at their cap situation, I don't know that they have as much money to even offer him fair amount, and that's going to be a thing why they should probably do this deal as well. Because I was thinking Jock Lawndale. I don't know if I ever say his name right, but Landau or Lawndale. I think it's Lawndale, but I believe that he is a restricted free agent. I saw that today, and I just shoot him in an earlier conversation as somebody they're probably going to resign. But when I assess their situation, they don't even have a dime to give him. So whatever it is, if somebody wants to just give him a little more than what he's expected to get, they're probably going to be not want to match that. The Suns probably not going to want to match it unless they can create this flexibility here. They're going to use it. They're going to lose their young center. And so this is a situation where Rashad Holmes helps them, because obviously you're going to need that position filled if he does get snatched away. And the likelihood that he gets snatched away is starting to look higher and higher to me, because centers are scarce. You can only find three legitimate centers in the draft. One was taken at 10, so it's like a guy like Landale, one of your most productive assets, it's likely going to be an expensive one, maybe too expensive to keep. So again, let's enter this equation we're talking about with that trade. return. Rashad Holmes and JaVale McGee for a team that's going to be losing all of its centers. They got Bismack Biyombo in place. So if you're worried about Rashad Holmes staying healthy or JaVale McGee being too old, all three of them should cancel each other out. And if for some reason it just goes south, then from there you just say, you know what, we're just going to play small ball with these great shooters and just live with ourselves because we got three centers and ain't none of them staying healthy. But we knew that when we signed up for the situation. So it's like the best you can do, kind of. And maybe one of those guys can be retradeable. You package two of them together, maybe get yourself something else that may be a little okay. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And that's how you have to pick and plug if you're the Suns, in my opinion. But if you're trying to drive a hard bargain for Ayton, it may pay off, right? Because he's going to have such a huge role next year that he's definitely going to be on the floor a good majority of the time. So, that's what I'm trying to psych myself into understanding. It's like, okay, they got three scorers down there that are going to need the ball at all times. And those trio are also going to need somebody to rebound the ball for them a lot of the time. KD's going to do some rebounding. They all can rebound some. But you need that big in place. And I think Ayton's role is probably going to be even more so important this season if they were to keep him. Problem is, he's already shown signs of not having the motor. He don't want to be in Phoenix. It's a lot of things pointing at him not being his best to start the season. It is smart to move on from him, but if you can't get something better than him in his stead, at least if you start the season with him, you got a chance of playing his value up from where it is right now. And if that's the case, then you could trade him then and get a better return. So that's probably what they're thinking. They roll the dice and, hopefully he doesn't have an injury year or obviously have a year where he doesn't play well. And his value further falls from here. But the thing about it is he's a young player. It's not like Ayton is very old. What is this, year 7 or something like that for him? Year 6? So he's not overly old. He's probably entering his prime right now. So I think he's a decent investment for a team that needs a center, and there's a lot of teams that can use one. But you just don't want to have to take back a return you don't respect if you're Phoenix. So this is the thing where you run the risk, while the offseason is going on, for a fact there's no chance of him getting injured. And even though you want to play his value up, as I said, you can also play him into injury too. So it's one of those situations where you're rolling the dice, and that's the risk. The risk for the possibility of a higher return may be worth it. But when you consider their assets, you shouldn't really want to take any risk with as few assets as they have. So that's how I'm looking at it. I probably want to trade him in the offseason for multiple pieces just to offset that risk. To diversify what it is I have a bit more, since that's just the only way to play it. Because any one of those guys get hurt, and not only are you screwed for this particular season, but you're messed up, period, with their value. You know what I mean? You have your value in 4 little prongs, so to speak, and one of them snaps in half. It's like it's never going to be the same again. And from there, a fourth of your team's value is compromised, so to speak. So that's why you trade Ayton in the offseason. And if you're thinking clearly, you're trading KD in the offseason too. You don't even start the season with that possibility, especially with KD being, an older guy, someone we saw get hurt trying to, lay the ball up in warm-ups. Like, that kind of thing is like, if I only got 4 guys representing everything I have, we need to make all of it absolutely fit and make sense before the season starts. I don't want to have the season start and I think I have to make a trade to make it complete like the Lakers last year. You don't want to do that because you're already behind the 8 ball and you're not going to win a championship. And the key to Phoenix right now is the fact that they have a whole training camp with what they have to kind of set themselves up properly to just, to have their strategy and everything they want to do in order. If they have intentions of making a trade, that kind of negates that whole thing. You know what I mean? If they know just like the Lakers, if they know they have to have a series of trades in order to complete their team, it doesn't really matter what type of training camp they have as a trio. There's still going to be continuity issues amongst the squad. Now, there is a lot of carryover in theory because a lot of those Phoenix guys are expected to be back from last year. But I don't really know if that makes any difference given the fact that the team wasn't very talented. And they're gonna need talent. I mean, this is what it is. They're gonna get wiped the floor with teams like Houston and Utah, and Dallas, and Denver. They're just gonna beat these teams, man. They're gonna beat them. It's essentially what I'm saying. It's gonna be a tough situation if they don't make it make sense. Phoenix is not the better team in that situation. Not from top to bottom. They got the trio, but as we said, they gotta have guys to do the other things. And so I think you get JaVale McGee, Rashad Holmes, and of course Tim Hardaway, which is really the kicker in the trade, if you ask me. Because I think Tim Hardaway, even though he's not at the greatest contract, you couple him with Terrence Ross, and now I like my shooting tandem with those two. They ain't got nothing to do with that trio. And I got something coming off the bench that's continuing to keep the ball flying, high percentage 3-point shooting. So much space for whichever one of those players is on the floor while the other ones are getting a breather. You don't have any clogging whatsoever. You just keep that shooting going. So I like Tim Hardaway for the Suns. With Terrence Ross staying on the team and that trio starting ahead of those guys, and they could come off the bench. I just think that looks rather intriguing if you're going to get rid of Ayton. And you're going to have a more spaced out attack because you're not going to be as big, considering those bigs are not going to be reliable. You want your team to have all of the ability to just shoot if you're Phoenix. And scoring 190 points a game if at all possible. And so that's what I'm envisioning with Tim Hardaway. He's a bit expensive, but again, what we're planning on doing here is diversifying Ayton into a bunch of pieces, and I think that's precisely what you do there. Now, I'm going to lobby to try to find another way to get another piece. It doesn't have to be a very good prospect. It don't have to be nothing special, but I just want more players that I can potentially trade or potentially use, because I just need the depth if I'm Phoenix. I just need guys to be able, and that's it. And so that would be what I would lobby to do. I wouldn't necessarily try to move for picks. Maybe if I'm not, it just depends on what Phoenix actually wants to do in that regard. I think picks always make sense. But in their situation, they really do need talent. That's what it is. They just need talent, man. And so, yeah, that's my thought on the Phoenix Suns. That particular situation is intriguing to me because I think they may want to trade Ayton right now. It might make sense to them to do so. And I don't think that return is going to be much better than one that they reportedly turned down. So, yeah, we'll see what they get, though. It's a strange market out there for the center. As I told you, it's a volatile market because we know Wembanyama's coming in, and we know there wasn't many in the draft, but we also know that them dudes in the modern era tend to not, they're hit or miss in regards to whether or not their coaches are willing to use them. So you get the wrong ones, and you got a lemon that you're paying a lot for. So it's tricky, but the idea is now that Chet's back healthy, obviously Wembanyama's in place, and all these bigs, you're likely going to need to match up with those dudes whether you like it or not, whether your system likes it or not. And so we're going to see how that really plays out. There are more ascending centers getting better, as we talked about earlier, and I just don't think there's any room for teams that don't at least respect that other teams respect size. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. You had better respect that the field is now starting to value it, and if you don't have it, you're going to be at a schematic disadvantage on most nights. Size and height. It ain't enough to just have long arms. You better have some dudes that are heavy who can push around. And yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So yeah, there was something else I wanted to say. I don't remember exactly what it was. It might not have had anything to do with the Suns, but all in all, the NBA is providing us a lot to talk about in regards to free agency as it's approaching Friday. And James Harden is a name that I'm hearing a lot about. Last I heard, it looked like he was headed back to Philly. But a lot of that, in regards to him, it's just depending on what the Rockets probably want to do. When you know that you're drafting Amen Thompson, you can have a plan in place to do certain things. When you get Cam Whitmore with your 20th pick, it can change what you're looking at in regards to your team. I mean, that's not a pick you're supposed to receive. I'm telling you right now, they probably thought they were going to get uh, Murray or Podziemski or somebody like that. You do not expect to get the fifth overall best prospect. It changes your overall dynamic and outlook for your team. And so that's what I think the Rockets are now looking at. You get two high level athletes like that. I mean, the idea to pair Amon Thompson with Green and the other leapers was really, that's the only reason why they wanted Amon Thompson, from what I understand. They wanted the dynamic of athleticism being superb. And so when you consider bringing in James Harden, you know you're going to have to relinquish some young players. Maybe not the ones that leap and jump the most, but definitely players you have no business getting rid of. And so if they were thinking about doing that, it was because they probably didn't think the ceiling of this team was overwhelmingly high. When you add two of the highest, prospects in one draft to the situation, it changes the entire thing. You're not just bringing Amon Thompson to your situation to try out to see if he can, add to what they do with a bigger guard. Now you're realizing that you're probably one of the most athletic teams in the history of the sport. And that's a different thing when you're considering what James Harden's expected to be and what his role will be. Now your timeline is much more intent upon these young players because they're at such high level. And so that's what has changed. I think when you think you're bringing in Amon Thompson and maybe the 20th overall natural pick, maybe you think you're getting, Jaime Hawkins or something like that. It changes when you find out that you're getting Cam Whitmore and Amon Thompson. It's like, oh, well, okay, that's the type of value we game up on. Maybe James Harden can stay in Philadelphia and we could still attract all of what it is we were trying to attract by bringing him back. You see what I'm saying? Because now your team's so exciting. I don't think anybody in Houston really wants them to do anything at all but bring those kids in and let them fly around. That's it. And so I just think it's different. You just raise your overall value class, if I said that correctly. So, I'm looking at their roster and I'm saying, okay, they got a log jam in areas that they probably weren't intending to have one. Small forward position, Terry Eason, they're very excited about Terry Eason. Do you really have the role for him right now? With all that you have with Smith, your value on Smith, do you see it the same way as you did before? Now that you have Cam Whitmore in place and Amon Thompson, it just becomes a situation with Houston Rockets, the urgency to move on from some of these players has just entered the equation. And while maybe not the ones I mentioned, some of the guys further behind them who they probably didn't plan on moving on from either, now they're definitely expendable, and it just changes every single thing about this Houston Rockets situation, getting that player at 20, Cam Whitmore. So that's what I think kind of throws things off in regards to James Harden. I think that's the only place that really wanted to pay him the money that he was hoping to get. Everywhere else, I don't know what the market would look like, but I don't think it's going to be up in the stars like he's expecting. Philly, all things considered, from what I understand, they're feeling optimistic that they can bring him back. I guess that means they're going to play his salary. I don't know how Joel Embiid feels about that. I really don't. But I also know Daryl Morey is James Harden's guy. And ownership rather, seems to be very intent on letting Daryl Morey continue to run things. So, I don't know. Daryl Morey is the kind of guy that's always done things I didn't really understand. And we've talked about it a couple times on this channel. But removing Clint Capella from the Rockets at the time, I don't think I understood. Maybe they were doing it for financial reasons, but I just thought it left him at such an awkward, small ball type of thing in a time where that was absolutely unheard of. And maybe he was a trailblazer for small ball. Maybe that's what that was. But honestly, it just left me with an understanding that he's willing to do unorthodox things. And so right now, I think he's kind of strangled behind the contracts of several players on that team, and you really can't see what he'd be willing to do because you can't really do nothing with some of those assets. And that is what I think is going on with Daryl Morey. I don't think he can really do anything at all. I think he's kind of just sitting there with his assets. He's putting huge price tags on a guy like Tobias Harris, so he has something up his sleeve. But honestly, I don't know what there is to do. You're gonna move Joel Embiid. You're gonna move Tyrese Maxey. Tobias is gonna be hard to move, I believe, for anything like what he wants. But he's aiming for the stars because he understands that. And James Harden, you don't necessarily want to move. Obviously, he's a free agent, so you got to see what's going to happen here. But I just feel like the flexibility in Philadelphia doesn't really work. They just don't really have much of it, to be honest with you. And it becomes a situation where you wonder if he has the ability to really do what he wants to do, if there's really a GM job for him to have in that situation until the ownership decides he wants to move on from certain pieces. He just can't move. And for a guy like him who wants to do crazy, wacky things, I just wonder if it's still really his kind of job anymore. Why he wants to even, I guess, be the GM of that particular place anymore. And if I'm him, I probably want to be a part of somewhere that has a lot of flexibility, you know, or a team that's getting ready to start their rebuild, or maybe even a team that's in a financial hole but has some path to getting out of it. You know what I mean? That's kind of like not in a dead weight situation where you got assets that you're just not gonna move because you that's just what the team is about. Joel's contract, boom, and they want to go forward with Harden. So you got those two contracts. That's what you got. And then of course Maxey's a player you never want to move, and Tobias's contract is what it is. So it's like, and the rest of their assets is, you know, McDaniels is alright. You like him. Milton's developing pretty good. You like that they brought in DeAnthony Melton, so they're not doing too bad. But for me, it's like, are they good enough? Obviously not. If they keep getting knocked out in the second round, so if I'm Daryl Morey, I just want the ownership to say, "Yo, you can do whatever you want with this thing," and I promise you, you're gonna see him do some things with that roster and getting rid. He'll probably end up moving Tobias Harris, which it looks like he's trying to do. And I can see Tyrese Maxey being moved as well, just to create that flexibility. Even though nobody really wants to do that in Philly, I surely would not. But I just look at Tyrese Maxey and probably see him as the piece that's a lot more likely to be moved. It's like I said, James Harden's his guy. He ain't going to move his guy. And Joel, I mean, the rumor is Joel's probably almost tired of being in Philly. But at the same time, that's his, it's his franchise. Obviously, they've had some stars in the past: Iverson, Dr. J, Moses. I mean, we know, but this is his right now. This is his, era for Philly, and he's gonna go up in their Mount Rushmore just like those guys. So he wants to win his championship to solidify that, but it's gonna be hard for them to do that if they keep on doing things that they've been doing. The Tobias Harris contract should not have been, that should have never been signed to that degree. And going after James Harden at this stage in his career is just not gonna get you over the top. It hasn't, and it wasn't going to. So it's just these type of things that they make these decisions. It's like, you didn't re-sign Jimmy Butler. You know what I mean? The whole Ben Simmons situation and how that went down. Didn't really get a return for him like you needed to. These type of things. It's just like, all right. James Harden, are you going to turn him into something? I guess that's what it would be. And because Daryl Morey's his guy, you're not going to. So if I'm Joel, I'm thinking, yeah, I could probably go somewhere else and be cool, man. I could probably spend the second half of my career in a different uniform and enjoy the sunshine in a different place, because, to be honest with you, ain't much going on in Philly, man. It's just not. It's only going to go as far as he take him. And a lot of times the rest of that stuff, he's just dragging along. And in an NBA right now where you got multiple teams with all these type of young players, you look at Utah, you look at Houston, as we've talked about, Orlando, as we always do. You look at Philly and their asset class, and you just say, man, that is not going to be enough for yourself going forward into the NBA that we're headed into. Joel's going to take them as far as they go, but like I said, second round at best with what they're sitting on. So at some point in time, they're going to have to be honest with themselves and figure out a way to get the most out of what it is they have. And if Joel Embiid is indeed ready to move on, I'm pretty certain you can get a heck of a lot for the MVP. You know what I'm saying? The price tag he should be at right now, It would be the worst idea to trade him while he's in the MVP price tag. It would not be the worst thing if you make the decision to move on from him. I don't know why you would wait. The price tag is high as it's probably going to be right now. But see, when you're not quick enough to make those decisions at the right time, you know what I mean? You're going to move on and I guess decide to trade him when he gets a little older, when there's a knee injury or something like that. Then you want to move him. It's like, nah, that's not what you do. You make that decision when that price tag is ripped up into the air. And he's got one foot out the door any dang way. This is when you trade him. When the whole market is looking at centers like, I need them. And you got arguably one of the best ones, obviously Jokic, but it's him and Jokic. So it's like, if this ain't the best time to trade Joel Embiid, I guess I don't understand it. I don't understand why it wouldn't be. Put it like that. I don't understand why it wouldn't be. He's fresh off MVP, healthy. You know what I'm saying? This is when you do it. I don't know why. I just thought of Portland for some reason, but I know the only thing they're going to be trading is Dame Lillard in that situation, because ain't nobody going to want to swap Scoot Henderson for the MVP. But that's exactly the type of thing that would make me, Dame Lillard, happy about being in Philadelphia, being in Portland. You bring me Joel Embiid. That's all I got to say. You bring me Joel Embiid. And now I really feel like we really trying to win a championship in Portland. There's a lot of stuff you can do in Portland. You know, if you're going to mortgage away your future and give away a guy like Scoot Henderson. But for me, if I'm going to give away a guy like Scoot Henderson to bring Dame something, I'm going to bring myself the MVP. That's exactly how I'm going to do it. That's the fences I'm swinging for. If there's any chance it can shake or loose the MVP of the league, that's what Scoot Henderson would be worth to me if I'm the Portland Trail Blazers. And the reason why I say that is because this is the best player you probably drafted in a very long time, Scoot Henderson. And if you're giving him up to finish the job with the old guy, the guy you're bringing in to let go of Scoot Henderson probably should be at that level to make it make sense if you think Scoot's actually going to become that. Now, I've heard a lot of people think that they don't think Scoot's going to be that. Some dudes really think that he's just going to be a really solid player, and that may be the case. But that's not the point at all. We're talking about his price tag today. That's what will never be negotiable, is about what his price tag was on draft day. In the weeks thereafter, before any training camp, before summer league even. What his price tag is on this day in June rather. His price tag is whatever you want it to be when considering his hype. Right under Wembanyama, future historical player. That's what people expect. Never mind what the truth is. This is when you trade him as well. And so that's what I'm saying. The Portland Trail Blazers, if they're serious about moving Scoot Henderson, this is the best time to do it. Before anybody ever sees him play, before he's any better or any worse than what we think, which is MVP 2032. Right? Unless Wembanyama wins it every year, Scoot Henderson's going to get it at some point. Let's just call it like that. And if you think his price tag's that high, yeah, I'm trying to move him for somebody like that. Now, granted, you're going to have to match salary, blah, 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 yakety smack. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try to find some way to match salary in that regard. I know Atlanta got a huge trade exception. Maybe I could try to get them involved somehow. But the point is, that is what I want to do if I am Portland. I'm going to try to see if I can make a move with the Philadelphia 76ers and Daryl Morey. I don't know how Philadelphia would feel about that. Getting rid of Joel Embiid and bringing in Scoot Henderson when they got guards. But I don't really care because I'm not doing this for Philly. I'm doing this for Joel, and I'm doing this for Dame, and I'm doing this for Portland. And Philadelphia would obviously get back everything they're supposed to get to make it make sense. We would get other teams involved. They would get all they need. So it's not like I'm expecting they would get a trash return. No, we'll work in a great return. But I'm just saying, this is what I would try to do if I'm Portland. This is exactly what I'm trying to do. Because at the end of the day, Joel does need to get the hell out of there. He's probably gonna want to be in a big city, but he don't have no leverage. He ain't no trade cards. There's nothing there like that. It's just gonna be whoever gets the best return for him. Just the best return. And so when I consider great returns, I probably think of something maybe more expensive than Scoot Henderson, to be honest with you, for the MVP. You know what I mean? I'm thinking of a lot. So, like I said, I don't know if Portland got the best return. You know what I mean? It's going to be a lot of people going to bid. A team like New York's probably just going to outbid them with 7 picks. That's really how that's going to probably go. So, if Portland's ready to get rid of Dame, there's a million places Dame can go, I think. One being Miami. I think Philadelphia probably take it on too. Especially if James Harden leaves, they probably just replace him with James. Replace James with him. But nevertheless, it's one of those situations where I don't really know if that makes any sense at all for anybody. I'm just telling you, if I'm in Portland's, room where they, figure everything out. If I'm one of their brass members, I'm probably thinking that I want to bring Dame something that ridiculously talented, and bring my franchise something that impactful if Scooten's going to be leaving. You know what I'm saying? Because I've heard of the returns, you guys, excuse me, that could come from Scoot Henderson. And in a nutshell, it's either a really good idea or a really bad idea. Like Pascal Siakam, that's either a really good idea or a really bad idea. Because I say it's a really good idea because you're bringing in Pascal Siakam, proven, all-star guy who can score 40 points. He's going to play well. But is he really going to bring you what Scoot's going to be if Scoot turns into what he's supposed to be? Is he a big enough name to where Dame retires and you got Pascal Siakam and you're moving into the sunset? I don't think so, man. And that's the concern I have for the Portland Trailblazers if they make a trade for Scoot. Now, if you trade Scoot and he turns into a bust, or if he becomes injury prone, his development don't go right and he's just another guy, cha-ching. Now you brought in Pascal Siakam for just a prospect that ain't turning nothing. That's great for you. But it doesn't, the reality is the return you could have got for him right now could have been crazy. It didn't have to be Pascal Siakam necessarily, but the way things are going right now. The way people are looking at him right now, you might be able to give him more than that. And so that's what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying. Pascal Siakam's a great player to have to complement Dame. But if I'm giving away potentially the future name on, the future of my franchise in Scoot Henderson, if I see him that way, I'm having a hard time wanting to give him up for a guy that's going to help Dame, but maybe not help me put, booties in seats, basically. So it's like that's a thing Portland's got to be real careful about. Are you sure you want to trade Scoot Henderson? Are you sure about this? Because I don't think he and Dame are the greatest to play with one another, and I don't necessarily like the idea of Scoot having to wait for Dame to retire or wait for Dame to get hurt. Anthony Simons must be traded regardless. All of this looks really funny to me. Just from, this is why I kind of don't want Scoot there. But if they're going to move on from Dame, then, hey, this is the perfect place for Scoot. But if you're moving on from Dame, if you're moving on from Scoot, are you moving on from Shaedon Sharpe too? Because that's also a question. You're not only considering Scoot Henderson, you got Shaedon Sharpe there who also shows immense upside. So if you're going to move on from the youngin' timeline, then you got to respect that you don't have only one player to consider. You got 2 to get rid of. And that, if I'm Portland, might be a no-go if I'm talking to Dame. Like, Dame, you want me to trade both of these dudes so you can have who? What I heard was that he wants Draymond Green and for them to resign Jeremy Grant. And maybe that helps him win. And maybe he sees something schematically that works there. But I'm looking at him absolutely crazy if he comes into my room telling me to trade away Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson so I can put Draymond Green on my payroll. I'm looking at that man like he's out of his mind. So I don't really know if that's real. I don't think it is. To be honest with you, I don't think that that's a real thing. That's probably a rumor that should not be taken seriously. But the point is, Somebody's throwing that out there. And, that for Portland and their future, I don't really like that. And I'm trying to be very diplomatic and kind. I don't really like that. But Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot Henderson, and whatever return comes for Dame Dollar, and whatever return comes for Jeremy Grant, yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a whole lot. And I think the market will too. And so I don't doubt that Dame is somebody they want to be loyal to. We've already discussed why. It's all in place. And maybe they don't want to renege on it. But it makes all the sense in the world for the health of their franchise to not trade Scoot Henderson. That part today looks very good. Now, if something goes wrong with his development, again, injuries, all kinds of stuff could change that. And that's just what it is. The risk is there. Maybe that's why you move on from Scoot, so you don't have to deal with that. But they got to figure something out. That's what I'm saying. Portland should definitely trade one of those two players. Don't think you're solving the situation by trading away Anthony Simons and leaving them two together. You're not. You're not. That's what I want to tell them. You're not. That is not going to go well at all. I see that already. And so I just think that Portland needs to make a very, very strong decision for their franchise. You're going to go forward with Dame, or you're going to go forward with Scoot Henderson. And in the event they go forward with Scoot Henderson, I think they keep Shaedon Sharpe. In the event they go forward with Dame, I think Shaedon Sharpe's out of there too. And if I'm a Portland fan, I may love Dame to death, but ain't no way in hell I'm giving up those two players that I drafted as well. Just like they drafted Dame, they drafted them too as well. And I cannot see young Portland fans being okay with that. Old ones either. And so we talk about Dame a lot on this channel. I believe Dame is a fantastic player, but it's going to be very difficult for him to sell me on keeping him around if it means getting rid of that young talent. And I don't know how his fan base feel about that. The people who just love Dame, because a lot of them going to be like, yo, Dame is giving his all to his franchise, no loyalty. And that's cool. I respect that argument. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to be able to contribute to championship success, and I'm giving away future players, I have to make that make sense. It has to make sense all the way around. And if we're not getting the championship glory, or if he's not going to play enough games to make it make sense, then what have I given away to make him happy? What have I given away? The future. And that, for a guy who's already in his 30s, that's just irresponsible for your team. So that's what I'm thinking in regards to the situation. And look, I don't believe Dame is asking for Draymond Green. I don't think he's asking for that, man. Because at the end of the day, they still got to be able to shoot the ball. And if you bring Draymond and Jeremy Grant to your team, then spacing is going to be messed up, man. So they may be able to defend some people better, but they're still not going to have the length to stop a Wembanyama or these various dudes that are so very capable, including Jokic. And so I just look at this situation and I say, nah, not me. I'm going to go forward and trade Dame Lillard and just bring myself a return that I can be respectful of, send Dame to a situation that he can enjoy, and move forward with these athletes. You know what I mean? Move forward with these athletes in this return that should be very handsome for Dame Lillard. So I don't know if Portland is going to make the right decision for themselves. Maybe they stick around with Dame and bring themselves something that could really compete. But do I see them building anything at all that's going to be able to beat Jokic? Not if they don't bring themselves Joel Embiid. BDO44, I thank you all for watching.